You're listening to the Yoga for Balance podcast. I'm your host, Heather Jurdy, a San Diego-based 500-hour yoga teacher that specializes in Vinyasa and Tantra yoga. In this podcast, I'll be speaking with inspiring individuals to reveal their stories and secrets to living a healthy and balanced life. Subscribe to wherever you get your podcast for weekly episodes on topics ranging from yoga to meditation, spirituality, mindful living, and more. Thank you so much for being here. Namaste. In this episode, you will be inspired by Mandy Burstein, also known as Zen Girl Mandy. Mandy is known for her transformative yoga classes that she teaches throughout San Diego and in her international yoga retreats. I know you'll be inspired by her beautiful words and perspective, and I hope that you enjoy this conversation. Be sure to check her out at Zen Girl Mandy, and you can find all of the show notes on our website at vintantra.com, vintantra.com. Be sure to subscribe to the Yoga for Balance podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and help us grow by leaving a review while you're there. Hello, I am here with Mandy Burstein on the Yoga for Balance podcast. Mandy, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Heather.
So happy to have you here. Mandy and I have known each other for several years. We'll get into some of that throughout these questions, but it's really a pleasure to have you here on the podcast, and I can't wait to share your wisdom with the world.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
Let's take a step back. I'd like to journey back to when you first started your yoga path. What brought you to yoga in the beginning?
So I took my first yoga class 10 years ago. I was on a vacation with my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband. We went to Costa Rica, and we spent a week in the jungle and surfing, and there was this really rad studio, no mirrors, no music, just hearing the chirping of the little animals around you. And I dropped into a class. He and I took a class together, and it was just so lovely, so organic, so fresh. I felt amazing after. And then we ended up taking class every day of that trip. We just infused yoga into that trip, and it became like a little addiction almost. And then when we got back home to San Diego, right away I found a local studio, which is the studio that Heather and I actually met at. So I started practicing there probably 3 or 4 or 5 times a week. Again, just the addiction growing and growing, and just loving exploring different teachers, different styles. And yeah, here we are 10 years later. So I was just drawn to the practice of moving your body, breathing, and new inspiration coming through every time you got to take class. So every teacher would have a different quote or a different theme that they were addressing, and you got to walk away with a new perspective. So for me, it was just the perfect mind, body, spirit experience.
What would you say to someone who's been considering doing yoga, but they're maybe intimidated? They don't feel like they're flexible enough or strong enough.
So there's a joke in the yoga community. If you say, oh, I'm not flexible enough to do yoga, you're the exact person who should be doing yoga, right? You hear that a lot. Or if I'm too stressed to do yoga, okay, then definitely you're the number one candidate. Or I'm too big, or I'm too busy, whatever it is, fill in the blank. Like, it's for you. Yoga is literally for everybody. Our culture, our society is overworked. We don't know how to breathe. Think about when you're walking on the street, or right now when you're listening to this podcast. You're probably breathing in your throat or just in your nostrils, in the very upper hemisphere of your body. So yoga teaches you more than anything. The poses are awesome. The music is awesome. The community, the vibe. More than anything, it literally just expands and opens your lungs and teaches you how to receive oxygen to your fullest capacity. And I think that's all we need to heal individually and as a society. We just need to learn how to pause and take a big, huge breath in, because as we know, as anyone who's ever experienced this knows, the pause between the inhale and the exhale, the pause between stimulus and response, the pause between your partner saying something rude to you and you responding. So the pause between something negative happening to you and you responding, you being able to capture that pause, to actually choose to take the pause before you respond, to take a big breath in, to choose your response, take a big breath out, and then respond from a more loving place, from a more composed, a more compassionate place. That is the game changer. That is worth every penny you pay for your yoga membership, every penny you've ever paid in therapy, every relationship you've ever lost. That will save your marriage, your job, your relationship with your sister, your brother, your mother, whatever it is. Yoga at the end of the day literally just teaches us how to breathe effectively and how to pause and choose our next action. So in that respect, yoga is literally for everybody. If you're consumed or preoccupied with your physical body, if you're saying, oh, I'm too large to do yoga, or I'm not toned, or I could never stand on my hands, or I just had a baby and I'm recovering from that. Think about your physical body as just a shell, just an external shell that you get to tighten up, strengthen, loosen, whatever you choose over your lifetime. But it's literally just the shell. If you go a few layers deeper, there's your spirit, there's your soul, there's your heart, your love, your brain. There's all these other more important pieces than your physical body that need to be nourished and need to be a priority. So trying to get out of your body into your soul and think about nourishing from that space will get your butt off the couch into a yoga class immediately. So if you're ever stuck at home or at work and thinking maybe yoga's not for me, today's not the day I'm going to start it, or I'm not going to go back to class, maybe try that perspective. And I'm bet that will help you switch your mindset around and get to yoga, because it will literally transform your life by helping you learn how to pause and how to breathe.
That is such a beautiful answer. I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And how have you seen your practice transform and change over the years?
Yeah, so in my early 20s, I was about 22. I dabbled in yoga in college, took a little class at the local gym, things like that. But really my yoga obsession or love affair, let's call it a love affair, less creepy, that really solidified and took place when I was about 22. So 10 years ago, I was into my physical body, in a big way. I wanted my butt to be toned. I wanted abs. I wanted my arms to look strong from all the chaturangas and plank poses. You want to look good in a bikini. So you do hot yoga. You flow a lot. You want to move and feel good and sweat and all of these things. So it was about a year or two of that. And then I started to work with other teachers that once you master the poses, you can do a splits. You can hold a handstand for a few breaths. You can rock out a warrior two and one-legged chaturanga, whatever. Once you master those things, the human nature is to explore what's next. And for me, what was next, the universe put in my path some really awesome teachers that exposed me to a whole nother area of yoga, a whole intricate web of beautiful offerings that let me explore my mind, breath work. We call that pranayama. We're just different breath techniques. You inhale, you exhale. That's ujjayi breath. But then there's about 10 or 20 other intricate breath techniques that can teach you other ways to open up your respiratory system. So just luckily on my path there, and I sought out both, I was blessed with these people being placed in my path, but I also went out of my way to find teachers other than Vinyasa flow. So Restorative yoga was a game changer for me. Yin yoga, where you hold the poses longer, you rest, you heal your nervous system. Even a style of yoga called yoga nidra, which is yoga for sleep. That's how it literally translates. And a lot of people, if all you do is flow and all you do is move in your yoga practice, if you were to walk into a yoga nidra, everybody's laying there half asleep, you would be like, what the heck are these people doing? Go home, do that in your bed. Like, is that even yoga? But let me tell you, that is the most transformational practice. You're laying there and the goal is to be somewhere between awake and asleep. And you end up, the teacher guides you through a guided meditation into this dream state, which taps into and accesses your subconscious mind and can help rewire negative thought patterns, old habits, addictions, fears. So yoga, that's on a mental level, and then on a physical level, just relaxes your muscles in such a deep way, and it allows our nervous system to turn off. So I'd say that was probably my biggest epiphany over the last 10 years of my personal practice, which I've infused into my teachings now, is the idea that as humans on this planet, in the modern world, our nervous systems are incredibly overstimulated. We're just being hit with stimuli 24/7. Open your phone, there's 10 notifications. You open your browser, 20 windows are already open. We're being fed information in this generation, in this day and age, at a nonstop rate. And which is fine. Technology is improving, medicine, the ability to save lives, like all of this is a good thing, except for the fact that our nervous systems are being triggered and overstimulated constantly. So there's migraines, there's insomnia, there's high blood pressure, just this feeling like you can't ever catch your breath. You can't ever take a real inhale. You can't ever catch up with life. Everything's going too fast. So yoga nidra, the yoga of sleep, or restorative yoga, or even just that nice series at the end of class, the last 10 minutes that the teacher lets you do these deeper poses, lying down on your back and holding, and shavasana, where you get to lay there for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes and heal and recover and hit the reset button. That is exactly what our society needs. And from the untrained eye, from our programmed mind to go, 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 we see that and we think, oh, they're so lazy, or they're not doing anything. Or, we've all, as yoga teachers, we've all had that student that leaves before shavasana. That, of course, there's days when there's an emergency, but if you have that student that leaves every time before you get to shavasana, there's a reason. There's a big, deep resistance towards rest in our culture. And I feel like one of my missions and one of my big epiphanies personally, and what I share with my students, is that we need to embrace rest on a really deep level and honor it and schedule it in, just like you would schedule in 100 other things into your day. We need to schedule that in because we need to give our brains and our hearts and our souls and our muscles a minute or an hour or as long as you can to reset and reprogram, so that we can then start again and absorb the stimulus of the world, but hopefully in a newer, healthier, more balanced way.
So I love how you just went in and explored and revealed just so many different facets of this practice. I think many people come for the physical. I think that was a big draw for me initially, and that's okay.
Of course.
There's nothing wrong with that.
You want a healthy, strong body forever. We want to do a little cardio too. So that was another little side note that I discovered is, when we find, like for me, think about what I was saying earlier about my 20s, and I'm like, oh, I found the perfect formula. In 60 minutes, I can train my body, my mind, my spirit, like boom. That's another way in which our society has taught us to be efficient, effective. Maybe putting 1 more hour in your day for self-care will help you break up those things. So some days I don't need to go to yoga for my cardio. I've dipped in and rediscovered my love for dancing, or for going for jogs, or for swimming. There's 100 different ways to get your cardio. So understanding that we need to keep our bodies strong. We need to stay fit and healthy and have endurance and cardiovascular health, but that doesn't necessarily have to come from your yoga practice. So maybe you can do a 30-minute run or swim, or play with your baby for an hour and run around and chase them and get your heart rate going. and then give yourself 30 or 40 minutes of deep, conscious, mindful rest. So also extracting the two, not trying to force everything in and not have these expectations of my yoga class to get in 60 minutes to get every area of what I need. Sometimes if we separate it out and discover that yoga can be one thing and cardio can be another, that can open so many doors for you.
Yes, absolutely. And I've had students say that to me. I didn't come to yoga for this or this, but different days, different classes, different teachers, different styles. You're getting something a little bit different from that. So finding the right balance for you.
Exactly. It's all about cracking I call it like the Da Vinci Code of Mandy or a Da Vinci Code of Heather. We all have this like really unique bio-individuality that you have a very different set of needs than I do. And me, I have a very different set of needs than my husband or my best friend, So really letting yoga teach you to be mindful and learning about yourself. Like, look at yourself as this beautiful code to be cracked. Like, you peel back the layers, you learn about you on the deepest level, and then you can more quickly define what your needs are that day. But of course, without consciousness, you can't wake up in the morning and say, oh, I need 30 minutes of yoga and 20 minutes of yoga nidra and a quick run around the block. It takes time. Be patient with yourself, but look at it like a really fun journey of self-discovery that you're about to embark on. It's literally no trip around the world or crazy vacation can ever compare to the journey that you can take when you get deep inside of your own soul and figure out exactly what you need. It's like the best gift you could ever give yourself.
I love that. So eloquently put. And where do you continue to find inspiration? Because of course, this is an ancient tradition. We've been learning about this. The resources have been there, and where you first started to where you are now, I'm sure has changed. So where today are you continuing to be inspired? How do you find that?
Yeah, well, when I first started yoga, it was like the youngest, the hottest teacher, who was everyone flocking to. And lately, the last couple of years, I've really been drawn to almost what would be like the elders of our, community, I guess you'd call it. I'm really, really intrigued by the female body and what it can do over a lifetime. And a lot of the emphasis that we see and a lot of the offerings that we see are on a woman's body and her health in her 20s and 30s, and it kind of stops there. So working with women that I'm 32 years old. So what's really intriguing to me is what's going to come ahead in the next 10 years. I love working with seasoned teachers and women that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, or even just following their work online if they're not local and I can't take their class. Following the work of seasoned, elders of our craft who have walked the walk, who are, experiencing on a physical level what it lays down the road for me. So constantly looking ahead to the future of what like my personal needs are going to be in my life as hormonally and physically and spiritually, like my life evolves over the decades. Looking to those women for their teachings and their wisdom that they have collected and are disseminating. That's really intriguing to me. Anyone that works with sound, I'm really, really, really stimulated and healed by working with sound. Like I work with quartz crystal bowls, so I do sound healing that way. But I just taught a class and we had a guy come in. He was like straight from Mexico, from the jungle. He brought his didgeridoo like on the airplane. It was this giant, like, I don't know, 7-foot tall didgeridoo, but he offered, like, it was the most beautiful divine connection where I met him a few minutes before class. He offered to play during my class and I could feel, everybody could feel the vibrations of his didgeridoo and all these different little like rattles and instruments and drums that he brought vibrating like through the ground, through our feet, through our bodies, and through our souls, So that was such a special experience that like solidified in my heart the importance of sound therapy. And what else? Like energy work. Energy work's been really intriguing to me over the last couple years. So seeking out really powerful healers that specialize in Reiki or just hands-on touch, like the ability and power that we have in our hands to heal ourselves and one another. I've been really trying to work in that field a lot too. So yeah, just looking at the 4-dimensional spectrum of yoga and keeping your inspiration flowing constantly. Because like anything, if you've been working in any field for 10 years, if you're a pilot and you've been doing it for 10 years or a lawyer, there's always going to be a plateau in your learning or in your career where you stop and you realize, wow, I haven't been inspired lately, and you question the whole thing. And is this right for me? Should I continue on? Is there a different path I need to take? Just acknowledging chapters of your life. So I think in this new chapter of like the second decade of my yoga journey, really looking at the 4-dimensional spectrum of what yoga looks like more than just on the mat. Even in real life, like a lot of yoga for me lately has been through activism and sharing causes that I'm passionate about and looking at the global perspective, the global view of all this positive energy and abundance that we cultivate on our mats. Are we just recycling it back into our immediate community? Which is fine. That's where we need to start, absolutely. But maybe look one community over, one socioeconomic group over from you and see what their needs are. Here in San Diego, we live really close to the border, and there's always issues going on in Mexico that we can be of service for when they need our help. So thinking about, that's yoga in action as well. I've put a lot of my mental power lately into thinking about what that looks like, what our yoga off the mat looks like. So yeah, it's so rad. There's like a million different avenues that it can take. And if you ever feel stuck or uninspired, just flip it around, flip it from another angle, look at what other people in other communities are doing beyond just the yoga mat, energetically, with sound therapy, through helping their community, through giving back, through activism, through anything that lights up your heart. That's number one. Just finding things that really want you to make you want to jump out of bed in the morning and be a part of this world.
So then on the contrary, taking it back to when you started your journey. We had met, I think the first time we met in person was at a workshop during my first yoga teacher training at Bird Rock Yoga. And you were sharing, I think the concept was the business of yoga, the marketing of yoga, but the way that you framed it was perfect. It's exactly what I needed to hear. Just sharing, encouraging us as these budding teachers going through the program, not sure where we're going to take it next. I think everyone had their own idea of, okay, I'm not going to become a teacher. I am going to become a teacher. Maybe one day I'll become a teacher. I don't know. But I loved how you really framed it for us to encourage and empower us to share yoga in a way that's authentic and genuine. So I'd love for you to share just a little bit of that message with the listeners that you share with budding yoga teachers.
Right. Yeah. So there are 100 or 1,000,000 maybe paths that you can take as a yoga teacher. And kind of like what I was saying earlier about bioindividuality, we all need to learn our bodies and our makeup and everything that's going on inside of us individually, not comparing to another person's journey, another person's body or their path, because every single individual, 7 billion of us on this planet, are cellularly extremely unique. So if you apply that philosophy to your life and to your business ventures or your career, each of us has an entirely different calling than the other. And the trick, the work, is in figuring out what that is, right? So it's easy to be in teacher training or towards the end of teacher training, and the easy route is to say, okay, well, I'm just going to teach vinyasa in a studio because that's what I see my teacher doing, or that's what half of the people in my training group said that they want to do. So part of the biggest work that you ever do in a teacher training or post-training, actually, like the months and years that follow your training, is probably you're going to do a lot of stuff that you don't want to do. You'll probably you'll probably start your journey and start teaching at a lot of studios or a lot of places and realize, you know what, this doesn't resonate with me. I don't want to drive all around town teaching at 20 different places. Maybe I need to like root down into one place and really build a community there. Or maybe being in one place, teaching 10 classes a week at that one studio doesn't stimulate you enough or isn't inspiring to you enough. So you do need to move around, and you need to, for your personal well-being or your personal ability to be a sustainable yoga teacher, maybe you need to work for a corporation, or you want to go volunteer to teach at a senior home, work with elderly people to get that fill in your soul of being around multi-generations. So I think the biggest thing is really learning how to sit with yourself and learn and discover what is authentic for you, not for your friend, not for your mentor. And that's what happens a lot. We see that a lot is you find a mentor or someone that you love and resonate with as a teacher, and you want to follow their path. But what normally happens is you start down their path, and a few months or a few years in, you realize this is not my path. So being really authentic and genuine in who you are, and I think at the root of that, a lot of that is rooted in self-love. I think if we don't have a deep understanding of self-love or a deep embracing of our own selves and understand how unique and beautiful and talented and special each of us are, and each of us with our message is, then we're always going to try to just be a mirror or copycat or duplicate of someone else, right? So I think what I've seen in my own journey and working with women is that as soon as we can get to the root of that and stop putting ourselves down or diminishing ourselves or saying we're not good enough or we're not talented enough or that goal is too big for me, who am I to like be so audacious? As soon as we can just cut that chatter and cut that habit and start a new pattern of loving ourselves and knowing that we have a really special gift that we were put on this planet to live out. And if we don't live out our purpose, then we're doing a disservice to the world, right? So I think when you finally embrace that on a deep level and it's unshakable, at first you're going to go back and forth. Okay, I know I'm special. I'm not special. I auditioned for this gig to teach at this studio. I feel, I totally, I nailed it. And then they call you and say you didn't get the job. Oh no, I'm a terrible teacher. I'm not meant for this. There's going to be a phase, of course, of your life when you're back and forth with your confidence. It's like a roller coaster. Especially in somewhere like yoga where you're putting your heart out there as a teacher. And if someone were to tell you, no, thank you, we don't need you at the studio, like, that's a dagger, right? But having this really unshakable confidence, like at the root of you, at the very core, way deep down in your heart, way deep down below your belly button, down into the deepest depths of your core, you know that you are special, you are talented, you are a beautiful addition to this planet, and that you have a message to share. The trick is just finding the platform, the studio, the community that is receptive to it and that is ready to receive your message, right? So I think once you really work on self-love, when you take a big look at yourself in the mirror and see the areas of your life where you're not truly loving yourself, work on that first. Learn how to step into your power. Learn how to get after your goals. Set some really big, scary goals and go in the direction of them, and surprise yourself when you check those goals off your list. You're like, wow, that's really great way to build your confidence, one goal at a time. And then slowly but surely, being patient with yourself, eventually your truest, most authentic, most genuine self will reveal itself. And one day you'll wake up and it'll just become effortless. Mm-hmm. You'll have to work for months or years on being your truest self and unwriting and unraveling and deprogramming patterns that were embedded in you from childhood. when we tried to change to be different for our friends or our parents or society. But you know, one day if you really dive into this work, one day you will wake up and it will just flow. It'll just be so effortless. You'll wake up and love your body. You'll love yourself one day. And from there on out, everything will just come together naturally because you are living from a genuine, authentic place. And at that point, you'll be totally unshakable, unstoppable, and ready to share your message with the world.
That sounds just as incredible as it did the first time you told me. And I hope that people listening really take that and breathe that in.
Yeah, and
believe
it's a journey.
it.
Like, how long can I flip around the questioning?
Sure.
All right. This is Mandy asking Heather. How long would you say it took for you to find your authentic or genuine voice as a yoga teacher? Or as a human?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, as a human, I'm still working on that. But I think as a yoga teacher, definitely at least a year, you know. And for me, I was starting on the side. So I think it's a big difference if you leave the yoga teacher training and you go immediately into full time and you're starting to teach regularly and you're going, I think I've grown so much more in the last year being full-time right away than initially. So, you know, knowing those paths are going to change. If you do something for an hour a day versus 8 hours a day, the transformation, I think, will come sooner. So I think it all depends
like
on...
a pressure cooker.
Into
authenticity.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I think having patience, you're nervous at first. And, you know, if what you're saying is correct, I think I learned also, it's just the tip of the iceberg. I learned how much I didn't know as a student into, you know, before doing the training, I thought I knew everything there was about yoga. All I needed to know and learn was, okay, how to walk people through the class. And then, oh boy, was I in for a surprise. No, that was the tip of the iceberg. So I just kind of dove deep into my learning. But then I think there can be that nervousness. Like, oh my God, I'm learning so much more. There's so much I don't know is what I'm sharing, you know. But I think...
It shakes your confidence.
It does. It can.
But that's a good thing. Yeah, we're meant to be shooken up a little bit. You know, if we just always think we know it all, like, what's the point of life? You know, this is all to learn. This is all to be humbled and then rise back up. You know, so I think that training obviously did that for you, where a lot of people enter training, they're like, I know nothing, teach me all. And you were already on a journey leading years before you took your training, so you have a different perspective. But it was a good like humbling experience,
and being humble enough to admit what you don't know, because you will get questions and you'll have, you know, discussions where you can say, I know this, here's what I know, here's my perspective. You know, I'm still exploring that, but having that conversation and knowing, I think I heard this on a podcast the other day, it's not even necessarily sometimes about the answer, it's about the conversation like we're having right now. It's the exploration of the topic. I find nowadays sometimes students want to just talk about this stuff. So they come up and they ask me a question and I can say, here, this is my perspective, this is what I've learned, this is how I feel about it. What do you think? You know, and being open to admitting what you know, what you don't know, what you have answers to, what you don't, and not thinking, I need to know it all right now. Yeah,
definitely. And in that case, like there's like some beliefs from Buddhism and different Eastern religions that believe the minute you've reached enlightenment or your full capacity here on this planet is when you die, when your life expires. So it's almost like, no, I don't want to know it all. No, because then that means you're done, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the end of your usefulness in this body, in this incarnation, on this planet at this time. So enlightenment's great, but who wants to reach that in their 20s? No, thank you. Yeah. That's something to me, you should be 90 years old and wrinkled, surrounded by all your kids and grandkids, and one day the light bulb goes off and you're like, aha, I've cracked the code of every spiritual belief and I've learned, mastered everything. Mic drop. I'm done. Right? Like save that mountain, the Pema Chodron, like this famous Buddhist nun, you know, she talks about the peak of the mountaintop. And why are we rushing there? You know, like, yeah, the view is great, but you should make it to the top of the mountain or the peak of enlightenment or the end of your spiritual journey, the end of your questioning at the end. You know, like, let's not rush there. There's a lot more life to live, and a lot more love and humbling moments and ups and downs to experience. So I love that metaphor, though. It's like, when you're done, you're done. That means your physical body too. So let's not rush it.
Yes, no rush here. And you talked about the power of bringing women together and kind of looking at the female journey, and you as a female looking at elders and wisdom, and you also bring together groups of women. So I'd love you to talk a little bit about the power of gathering as females, as males, and what kind of work you've done there and you continue to do.
Yeah. So I would say about 5 years ago, I started doing women's circles related to the moon. So we'd gather on the full moon or on the new moon. And the idea was that if anyone out there's ever read the book, The Red Tent, it's an incredible book, especially if you're a female listening to this, or female identifying human listening to this right now, or male out there that's just curious about what the heck goes on in our bodies. Anybody really, it's an incredible book, The Red Tent. And it talks about, you know, in primitive days, in, say, caveman times, whenever women were on their cycle, whenever they were on their moon, they call it, they were banished from the community, sent away to go sit in a tent with other women that were on their cycle as well, or women that were breastfeeding or in some sort of phase where they needed to be physically away from the males of society or the children, or just to be separate. And of course, as women, we don't just sit there and bleed on a rock for a week. We talk. We get into the gossip, the nitty gritty, the wisdom, you know. So what ended up happening inside of this red tent was all the power and the wisdom and the knowledge and the lineage. Grandmothers would pass it on to the mothers. They would pass it on to the daughters that were coming of age into their puberty. So the idea of turning something negative into something positive. The women were literally banished to be separate from everyone else. And in that separateness, they created something magical. They disseminated knowledge to each other and special wisdom that could only come up in a sacred place. You know, they weren't going to be sitting around a dinner table with all their relatives and men and everybody and just start getting into this stuff. You know, this was something that had to be done in a sacred space. So here we are, flash forward to 2018. Luckily, we're not banished anymore. Sometimes we wish we were, right? Like, please just give me 5 days. No one touch me. You know, we're not banished from society anymore. Beautiful thing. Great for human race. But what do we gain? What do we lose? Right? We gain the ability to keep going while we're on our cycle. We gain the ability to keep producing, to keep working, to keep output, right? But what do we lose? We lose the ability to stop, to pause, to reflect, to have conversations with women of all ages and receive their knowledge. So that's the root of when one of my best friends gave me the book, The Red Tent. It just hit home and it emphasized in my soul how much I needed to experience this in the modern format. And of course, my first thing, jump on Google, start asking around, okay, who's leading women's circles in San Diego? And this is 5 years ago, so I couldn't find anybody. Like maybe someone up in LA was doing it, like very low key. But at the time, nobody was doing it. And then something that I've learned, which is like an exhausting feature of my life, is whenever something you want to be a part of doesn't exist, it's because you need to create it. And I just looked at the computer screen with no results, nothing for me. Nobody had any leads on who I could sit in circle with. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I just rolled my eyes. I'm like, okay, universe, I hear you. It's me. It's like I'm the one that's supposed to facilitate this. Even though I didn't really know much about it, about the ceremonial aspect or the roots of it, I knew that it was my calling to dive in and to research and to learn and to if nothing else, just to hold space. Like that was the biggest thing. I was being called to hold space for women to have sacred time to speak from their hearts, to receive wisdom from each other, just to be. And historically, it's in conjunction with a moon cycle, a moon phase. So with a full moon, it can be more celebratory. You're there to dance under the moon with drum beats and rattles and move your body and ignite and awaken your sexuality. You know, that's like traditionally what you think of with a new moon ceremony, with full moon ceremony. With a new moon ceremony, it's more traditional to pause, to anchor down, to reflect, to write out your intentions, to visualize, and to kind of forecast what you want the coming weeks to look like. So it's establishing new energy, but from a really grounded place. So leading these circles, either here in San Diego or when I'm on retreat, when I'm leading a retreat, I'll include that in the retreat experience. It's been really gratifying to my soul. Like, just the most incredible women come out. The majority of them have never been to anything like that. So if you ever see something like this now in your community, because they've become a lot more popular, which is a great thing. Like now, if you were to research new moon or full moon circle in your town, you're going to see 5 or 10 different options, which is really cool. 5 years later, half a decade later, to see the influx of women resonating with this, it just makes my heart really happy. It's obviously a big need for it out there, for women to have like sacred time away from society, even if it's an hour or 2 hours, to receive and to just be with each other with no agenda. It's been really gratifying. It's brought amazing, incredible women into my life, and it's exposed people to something that is primal. It's like in our blood. It's in our DNA. It's generations and generations that did this, that just in the big picture of society, of history, it's only just stopped maybe 200 years ago. So with like the burning of the witches and whenever, like, you know, in the US, when kind of sacred practices became really taboo and illegal and dangerous. So that kind of eradicated it from our culture. But prior to that, like, this is what women were doing for centuries, for generations. So it feels so natural when you show up. It's just like, yes, this was meant to be. I'm meant to be here and experience this and just sit with other women in a community circle of love and support and understanding. So yeah, I'd highly recommend it. Don't be intimidated. Everyone says that. They're like, I'm so scared. I'm like, what are you scared of? Come. It's the most loving space. So if you find one in your town, in your community that is being held by someone that seems trustworthy and is doing it with integrity and really is a good space holder, then absolutely I would go for it and treat yourself to sisterhood. That's really what it is at the end of the day.
And what would you say to a man listening? So I feel like on the other hand, I feel like men, there's sports and there's things that men gather for, but I think in a way that, like, how you're holding space for women, and historically we haven't seen a lot of that opportunity for men either. Yeah. And men especially that are coming to the yoga world and finding meditation and finding some softness and receiving and things like that. Could men benefit from similar practices with other men?
Of course, definitely. I'm not the one to be holding that because I don't know much about the intricacies of the male experience. And I think it's really important, whoever is holding the circle, to have a lot of knowledge and integrity and understanding of the path that particular person is walking. So I think the more that we see men participating in yoga classes, that will lead some of them into attending a yoga teacher training or a spiritual training. And then a percentage of those will go on to hold these sacred spaces for men. So I think I've done a lot of reflecting on this because people have asked me, like, why can't men be there? And, you know, it's not like a man hater club or anything. You know, it's really just to honor the roots of sacred space for women and for our particular journey. And when we want to talk about womb healing or what's going on, what stories you're holding in your uterus or how your ovaries are aching, that is a very unique female, anatomically, like only females have that. So, so in that space, I don't feel that it's appropriate, for men to be there, but that's not to be said that there's not a space for them. There's absolutely, men are under just as much pressure as women. They have this inner drive and a societal pressure to go, 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 to produce, perform, output. And what is needed for them as well is to stop, to breathe, to receive, and the input, right? The spiritual input and the wisdom from other men that are on that path. So yeah, I think my personal role, or anyone out there as a female yoga teacher, we kind of have the first contact with male yogis, so I think that the most supportive thing we can do is welcome them in with open arms into our classes. Let them know that they are supported, they are heard, they are welcome to be there and take this spiritual journey with us. And when their bodies need something different than ours, knowing, like, schooling yourself as a yoga teacher in the appropriate options for men, for males. How they have, typically a lot of my male students have overbuilt upper bodies and weak lower bodies, and maybe pigeon pose is usually not appropriate for the majority of men because delicacies in the knees and the ligaments, and they need to be on their backs doing figure 4. So there's, you could go on and on, but there's a variety of ways that we can support men in their yoga class experience to then be that teacher who plants a seed with the right person that they could be a healer, a teacher, a space holder themselves one day. So empowering them. There's a lot of men over time that actually that have come to my classes over the years that then took their teacher training that are now stepping into roles as leaders in the yoga community. And it's so, so beautiful to see. But I think my biggest role, or our biggest role in that capacity, is just empowerment all around for the men and the women in our classes. Make them feel good.
I love that.
Yeah.
So one other thing you do is travel in yoga, blending a few things that you love and hosting international yoga retreats and holding space for people outside of their home space and maybe in a new place they've never been or someplace they've been they love, they've revisited. So I'd love you to talk a little bit about holding those retreats and maybe some common misconceptions you hear if someone kind of sees you talking about this or, they've never been. Like you said, you've heard of this, but you've thought about taking the leap on booking one, and maybe by yourself, you don't know anyone else that would go on something like that with you, but it's something that's really intrigued someone listening. So what kind of is the power of going on a retreat like that, and what would you tell to someone that, is maybe considering it?
Yeah, so yoga retreats are really, really magical. With the right teacher and the right space, they can be life-changing. I know that sounds kind of grandiose to say, but in 5 days or 7 days time, absolutely, with the right teacher and the right experience, you will go home a different person. So 2 months ago, I led my 20th yoga retreat. Thank you. So over the last year, I've been doing this for 7 years. So definitely have learned a lot along the way. And just like my own personal journey, my retreat started out fun and physical, and we do a ton of power yoga, and then we'd go get our green smoothies and eat healthy food, and then go take another class, a second class, and then go out and drink and party all night and then be hungover and try to do yoga the next morning, right? So that was Mandy at mid-20s leading these yoga retreats, which were fun and which were exactly what that space I was in, the students I was attracting wanted that. And there's nothing wrong with that. Life is hard. It's a grind. We all have a lot going on. If you want to step away and do yoga and drink margaritas for a week, by all means, if that's what your body's telling you, that's exactly what you need. So that was fun for sure while it lasted during that phase I was in. But, as I got older and as I started diving deeper into my teaching and working more from like a healing space, like I really wanted to help people heal in a big way, like go home really, really healthy and happy. But yeah, the retreats just transformed a little bit and shifted. And not to say we don't have fun. We definitely still have fun. But the idea now is that you're showing up to kind of do some work, some spiritual work. So there's a ton of yoga retreats now. Any day of the week that you ever want to, if you want to go on a retreat tomorrow, you could Google it and find one anywhere in the world. So number one, I would say, if you're looking for the right retreat for you, look for the right teacher, someone who resonates with you. Maybe it's your teacher at your studio in town. And that would be great. If all the stars align and your teacher goes the place that you want to go to, the time frame works, the cost works, absolutely go for it, 100%. Don't miss that opportunity. But if you don't have a home studio or you don't have a community where you practice and maybe you follow people online more, then, just really vet the teachers that you're going with. Make sure that their vision of the retreat is exactly what you want. If you're looking for deep healing and you accidentally sign up for like a party retreat, you're not going to be happy when everyone's hungover the next morning, and you're trying to like heal some deep wounds, And on the flip side, if you're looking for a more lighthearted retreat and you want to just go and let loose and not think about the kids and bills and life and all of that for a few days and relax and keep it really light, then probably don't sign up for like the shamanic healing past life regression retreat, because you're going to go on a deep dive. And if you're not ready for that, it's just not going to be the right experience for you. So do a ton of research. If your favorite yoga teacher isn't offering a retreat, the best thing you can do, I get this question all the time. They'll say, oh, I can't go on your retreat in February, but who would you recommend, Mandy? Like, who would you go on a retreat with? And so most of us are very supportive and will happily refer other people to different experiences and different teachers, because at the end of the day, it's just getting the right students for you, for your retreat, and getting the students that are meant to be on that retreat there. So yeah, I think if you ever need advice, just hit up your favorite teacher and ask if they're offering a retreat or who they specifically trust and would go on a retreat with. But once you cross that hurdle and once you find the perfect experience and all the stars align, you'll find yourself in Guatemala on the deepest spiritual journey of your life, and it'll be magical, and you'll meet the best friends that you could ever ask for. Like, that's one of the coolest things is leaving, at the end of the retreat, leaving and all of these people are so connected, like lifelong new friends. Mm-hmm. That's been one of the most gratifying things for me, because I know how hard it is to make friends as an adult in your 30s or 40s or however old you are. It's just hard to make friends in your adult life, and in your community, finding like-minded people. So to go somewhere way across the world, spend 5 days or 7 days with these people and have like some real bonds that were formed, and people that you can call or FaceTime going forward about anything. When something good happens to you, you want to call them. Like, that is worth every penny. So yeah, retreats have been a really fun part of my journey of the last 6 or 7 years, going to some really epic places. I've done a ton, almost all of them were in Mexico. So I've traveled all throughout Mexico, leading these really epic retreats that have not only helped my students and created these experiences for my students, but have also deeply healed me, which was a surprise. So that's really awesome that that I was able to receive from the retreat, from leading a retreat as well. And then recently, 6 months ago, I did a retreat in Sedona, which was my first stateside U.S. retreat, which is funny because this is our backyard, and I only feel comfortable doing retreats in Mexico. I just feel a deep connection there. But opening my heart to doing one in Sedona was in Arizona. If you guys are familiar with like the Red Rocks, there's energy vortexes there. It's a very powerful place for female healing, which I didn't find out until we arrived. And I got to know some of the retreat center people who had been working on that land. We stayed on this retreat center that was like 140 acres of native land. The people that were helping us that week had been there over 20 years. Like they were just earth, like they were every ounce of that earth. And they explained to me like this specific land is a very sacred place for healing the womb of a woman. And I'm like, oh, that's funny because I'm bringing a group of women for divine feminine womb healing. So that was a really special twist that it's like taking a normal experience and putting it into a rocket ship. And we all just blasted off to this really, really special place. So that was something that surprised me. So even if you're leading retreats or you want to lead retreats, like one good lesson I learned was just open your mind to new experiences, new places. Don't always go where you feel comfortable. Like, of course, when you're starting out leading retreats, go with where you know, go with what feels comfortable, go with places you can trust, people on the ground there in that community that you can trust to help you hold a really safe and good quality experience for your students. But just like any craft, once you've been doing it for a while, expand your horizons and open your heart and your mind to new possibilities, because Sedona just blew me away. And I was resistant to it at first, and it like really was the perfect place for us to be in that moment. So yeah.
I've heard amazing things about Sedona.
Amazing
things. Other healer
it's
friends
really
that
cool.
have been there and worked there.
And for us US-based people, it's awesome to know too. Everyone wants to go to Machu Picchu or to Bali or to the jungle of Mexico or Costa Rica, which is like, that's normally where my heart goes as well. But knowing like in our own backyard, within a couple hours drive or a quick flight, that you can be on this really sacred healing land that has the same capacity to change you as somewhere like pyramids of Machu Picchu and, of all these different Egypt or wherever these sacred motherlands like India, that somewhere in our own backyard has that same capacity. Actually on that Sedona retreat, one woman came from Saudi Arabia. She was a British woman living in Saudi Arabia, working there, and caught wind of our retreat and somehow knew about the magic of Sedona, had heard the stories, and flew there. And she said, Mandy, I have traveled. She's been lucky enough with her job. She works in oil, and she's traveled the world. And Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, Sri Lanka, like she's done everything in Asia and the Pacific. And she said that like Sedona, that experience in Sedona like blew it all away in a different way. It's like the mountains, the high desert. Opening your heart, staying open was like a really good lesson I relearned a few months ago.
Beautiful. Yeah. Oh, I think that helps to unveil a lot of things that people may have in their head about what a yoga retreat would need to look like for them, and should I go? So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Oh, we've covered so many amazing topics, and just a few last questions for you related to the topic of the podcast, Yoga for Balance. I'd love to know if you have like a 10-minute tip for anyone listening right now at home. If they could do one thing today to start finding more balance, what would you recommend?
So 10 minutes of Yoga Nidra. So it's spelled Nidra. So Yoga Nidra. If you Google it or on YouTube, there are endless videos, recordings of Yoga Nidra meditations. My favorite is by Dr. Richard Miller. He has a program called iRest, and he's kind of like the guru of all of this. There's been studies on his particular style of Yoga Nidra that it heals. They worked on soldiers returning from battle with PTSD, and he's been able to heal a lot of them from their like deep trauma. So imagine what it can do for us everyday people, just battling life. So I would say 10 minutes a day at night if you want to. My husband and I lay in bed at night and put on the Yoga Nidra recording on YouTube and just let ourselves, just set the iPad to turn off on its own, and we let ourselves fall asleep to that. And it's a full body like exploration and meditation. You can put your legs up the wall, do that pose. You can experience it just laying down flat or putting some props, some pillows under your knees, or prop yourself up in any way to feel really comfortable. Put an eye pillow if you have like a little cushion to put over your eyes. That is like next level. That'll really help you feel good. Yeah, 100%. That's my biggest tip. Yoga Nidra. Do it with your partner, with your child, with your friend, by yourself. It's just the perfect reset.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And finally, what does balance look like to you?
So balance to me is when all of my relationships feel perfectly in alignment. Right? So something you learn over the years, yoga is not about the poses. It's about the breath. It's about your response. It's about the pause. It's about being a more loving, more compassionate participant on this planet. So I kind of I always thought my spirit animal was an octopus. Like I have 8 tentacles going out in all different directions. And I think as humans, we can all resonate with that at different times in our lives where we have these tentacles outstretched going 8 different directions. And we always feel like we're trying to hold it up, keep it going, stay strong, stay engaged, keep everything exactly balanced where it should be. And that's a lot of pressure we put on ourselves. So when I find an ability to relax into that state and embrace that state instead of fight it, and just know that's part of being a human on this planet that we're blessed to be a part of, is just engagement and connection in these relationships that we have in our lives, to our work, to our friends, to our family, to our children. When I look around at the end of the day and I feel like my cup is full of positive friendships in my life, of a great relationship with my child, with a loving, supportive relationship with my spouse, a healthy relationship with my workflow, and a good relationship with my self-care, when kind of all of those bases are covered, that's when I feel perfectly imbalanced. And just like everything's flowing exactly as it should be. And that is not every day. Don't get it twisted. That is absolutely not the normal, the average state. It's about working back to the state of balance. You fall out of it, you get back in, just like a yoga pose. You're trying to do half moon or dancer's pose. You stumble. Some days you nail it. Some days you stumble and you struggle to get back. And all that matters is that you bring yourself back with grace and forgiveness and love and self-compassion day after day after day. So that is, in my mind, what perfect balance looks like.
Beautiful. Thank you. Is there anything else we missed that we didn't chat about that you wish someone listening would know, or that you'd like to share?
No, I think in closing, I just want to give Heather a shout out. I want to give her everyone should give her a round of applause wherever you're listening from, because she's doing it. This is a goal she set for herself. Many, many years ago, she attended teacher training, which I was a speaker in. She fulfilled that. She started out slow with teaching a little bit. Now she's ramped up and teaches a lot. And then she has these big, audacious goals that she's going after, and you're doing it. This is really, I'm looking at the insides of the technology, and this is really complicated. The mics work, the mics don't work. It's it's a challenge. But any person out there who puts their mind and heart into something and does it against challenges, against everything, because at the end of the day, you just want to share this love of yoga and give other people platforms to speak from their heart. I think that's a huge, huge accomplishment that we should all be celebrating. So just want to let you know I'm really proud of you and being able to watch your journey unfold. And I can't wait to listen to the other interviews and see what kind of really awesome people from the community you're able to hold up and put a spotlight on, and let their perspective and vision shine. That's really important.
Thank you. And thank you. I want to thank you for all of the amazing healing work that you do in our world. And I'm just so appreciative to have had you as a mentor in my life, as a teacher, to be able to take your students to see all of the incredible things that you're doing in the world. You really are an inspiration. So thank you, Mandy.
You. Awesome. All right.
And where can people find you? So if they're looking to see what you are doing online, where should they look?
Yeah, so you can go to my website. We'll link it. It's my name, mandyburstein.com. I'm more active on Instagram, so that's kind of just a fun way to stay connected and see the day-to-day if you want to watch 10 videos a day of my daughter, Luna, being silly.
You do. She's adorable.
Sprinkled in with some yoga and some spiritual epiphanies and just regular modern mom, meditating, maniac life, you know. So my handle on Instagram is Zen Girl Mandy. So yeah, I'd love for you to follow along on there. We can stay connected, and that's where I always post my classes and my offerings.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Heather.
much. Thank you. Thank you again, Mandy, and thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts and help our show grow by leaving a positive review while you're there. You can also find notes and links related to today's episode on our website at vintantra.com. That's VINTANTRA.com. Thanks, and we hope that you'll join us again soon.